Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 film scores I couldn't live without. Oh, I just can't live without them. I can't. And neither can you. You know, a lot of you have asked me to do film scores as part of this series, and I always intended to, and I made this list at the beginning. It was just a question of where to stick it, because you've had other requests, and this project has expanded since we began. It's got like 20 some odd videos now, I think. There's a playlist. You can go look, go have a peek and see what's in there. And I just want to add, a bunch of you have asked me to do lists of all kinds of interesting things, you know, like by musical instrument, trumpet concertos, cello concertos. It doesn't work for everything. Now, in the lists with twists, playlists, gee whiz, there are something like 200 and some odd lists of videos. Well, there's hundreds of videos with lists of things, including works by musical instrument. Some of the more popular ones anyway. It's possible to make lists for anything you want to make a list about. But the question here is that you can't live without them. In other words, they have to be among your favorite pieces, things that you really, really love. And frankly, I mean, I could make a list of dozens of bassoon concertos. I mean, Vivaldi alone did dozens of bassoon concertos. Are any of them works that I can't live without? No. I'm sorry, bassoonists everywhere. That's just the way it is. There is one bassoon and orchestra piece I can't live without, and it's by Kirkland, and I made a video about it already. So, you know, there's just only a certain amount of room in this particular series of videos. There've got to be things that have enough works that you can come up with a good list. It doesn't have to be 16, but it's got to be a goodly number and that you really love, number one. And number two, from my perspective, I have to be able to leave space for you to give me your lists. There has to be enough really great music that you folks out there will have works that you love that aren't on my list. And so if you're, you know, the more obscure it gets, the more difficult it gets, you know, harmonium octets or, you know, whatever you want to come up with. Yeah, I can make a list, but it's not going to be a lot of fun for the rest of you. So let's try and keep the focus on things that are feasible. That's just my thoughts about it. Anyway, 16 film scores I couldn't live without. Yes, I know you want to get to it, don't you? No repeat composers here, but you can, of course. And wow, this is so much good music. Bernard Herrmann, North by Northwest. I just love, first of all, it's a great overture, one of the great film overtures in all of cinema. Second of all, it has an actual sort of love theme, a tune. You know, Bernard Herrmann wasn't big on writing tunes. He wrote motives and atmospheric tchotchkes. So it has a tune. It has the Mount Rushmore finale, which is thrilling. And it's just an incredible piece. I adore it. I just love it. And I think that it's an amazing piece of work. I really do. Next, Elmer Bernstein, as opposed to Bernstein. It's Leonard Bernstein and Elmer Bernstein. They pronounced it differently, so you wouldn't confuse them because they weren't related. The Magnificent Seven. Of course, it has to be there, doesn't it? It's one of the handful. There's a couple of iconic Western film scores, number one, and it's full of fabulous tunes, and it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Then, Alfred Newman, Airport, his last score, the very last, and it's such a rich fund of melody and stylistic pizzazz. I mean, it begins with the bongos and sort of jazzy, you know, airport, modern, urban thing, but you've got Ida Quonset, the stowaway. Her theme is pure Prokofiev. Amazing Prokofiev. And then you've got lounge music, and it's just got everything in it. Absolutely phenomenal piece of writing, and by one of the greats who passed away just after completing it. So I adore Airport. It also makes a great ringtone, by the way. I have it on my phone. Let's see Danny Elfman, Beetlejuice. Danny Elfman is wonderful. I mean, he's a genius in the art of post-cartoon music, if you want to call it that. You know, he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He did The Simpsons. These are marvelous, marvelous evocations of that wonderful style of the 40s and 50s. I mean, he's got his own melodic gifts, of course, and his own way of doing things. He uses more, contemporary and electronic instruments and things like that. But boy, is Beetlejuice a good score. Talk about a perfect marriage of the grotesquerie and cartoonish nature of the movie with the music. They couldn't have found a better composer to do the music. Miklos Rozsa, of course, Ben-Hur. How can we not have Ben-Hur? The most famous film score never written is The Chariot Race of Ben-Hur, because actually there's this grand march for orchestra that he writes, which is marvelous. And then there's The Chariot Race, but The Chariot Race has no music. And people don't even remember that. They all think it does. It's kind of a fascinating psychological phenomenon. There is, of course, tons and tons of other music because, Jesus pops up, or at least his feet, because in those days that's all you could show, or his feet, and, other things like that. But, it's a beautiful, beautiful score. It was a toss-up between that and maybe El Cid. I don't know, or one of his film noir things, but Ben-Hur is just a masterpiece. Malcolm Arnold's The Bridge on the River Kwai, one of the great war movies. Oh, it's such a phenomenal film. Of course, that's famous for the tune that Malcolm Arnold didn't write, which is the Alfred's Colonel Bogey March, which the prisoners all whistle all the time. And that's not by Malcolm Arnold. There is a Bridge on the River Kwai march that Arnold wrote, but the rest of the score is just dazzling. I mean, it's just a beautiful evocation of place and the setting and the tone of the work, and it's just a wonderful movie. I mean, that fantastic scene with David Niven, and, he realizes that he's had his prisoners building this railroad for the enemy, and so then they have to blow it up, and wow, it's just great. It's a great movie. Let's see, who else? Who's next? Oh, goodness, John Barry, The Lion in Winter, which I've talked about on a couple occasions separately. Oh, God, first of all, I love the movie. My mother made me watch that movie when I was like in fourth grade. It was on, there used to be, on Channel 7 in New York. What was it called? The 4:00 movie or something? The afternoon movie? It was a weekday thing. And they'd show a movie. And one of them, one year, was The Lion in Winter. And my mother sat me down and said, "You have to watch this," with Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole. And oh my God, it just knocked my socks off. It really did. And the score is one of John Barry's most beautiful. I mean, he did a million great scores. He was a wonderful composer, never mind the James Bond stuff. But this one, I think, is particularly special because the mix of early music and modern means, electronic instruments, bass guitars and things like that, and it sounds like, well, it's hard to describe. It's timeless on the one hand, but modern and gripping on the other. It's really a tremendous piece. Franz Waxman's Sunset Boulevard. Holy Moses. I mean, Waxman, came from Europe, of course, and he was actually a German jazz composer. I mean, he worked with a group called the Weintraub Syncopators, if you could imagine such a thing. And when he got to this country, he became famous for doing The Bride of Frankenstein. That was his first big score, one of the great horror movie scores, and still an iconic piece of writing. But Sunset Boulevard, that spooky, wonderful story about Norma Desmond. I mean, one of the best lines in all of film, when what's-his-name runs into her and says, "Oh, you're Norma Desmond. You used to be big." And she looks at him and she says, "I am big. It's the pictures that got small." Gloria Swanson at her bitter best. And the ending, which is a recomposition, a reimagining of the closing scene from Salome, or Salome, as she calls it, or they call it in those days. It's wonderful. It's Salome as a tango. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Incredible stuff. John Williams. John Williams has done like a billion scores, and we all have our favorites. And we've talked about him before, and you've given your choices for favorite scores, but mine remains, I'm sorry, Jaws. Because, I mean, if you can absolutely capture the audience's imagination and set the scene for an entire film using two notes. Just da-dum. That's it. From the for the remainder of galactic history, those two notes will mean shark and Jaws, and that is just the work of genius. I mean, it's incredible, and it has wonderful extended periods because there are big chunks in the movie where they're not talking. They're out hunting. They're hunting the shark. And so you need lots of music to accompany all of this action, this stuff that's going on where there's no dialogue. And John Williams shows that he can really compose in large stretches of music in this score. It's just, oh gosh, it's just amazing. After John Williams, Alex North, Spartacus. Yeah, another big cast of thousands, Roman gladiator thing, a Hollywood spectacular. Alex North was a very, very interesting composer because his style was very personal, and his melodic substance is often quite angular and strange. I mean, one of his most famous scores, Dragon Slayer. I remember the first time I heard it, I didn't like it at all because I wanted something sort of rousing and Korngold like it. It doesn't sound like that. It really doesn't, but it fits the film. I mean, I later came to enjoy the music away from the movie tremendously. He was a brilliant composer who happened to be writing for films. And there aren't many of those. I mean, we talk about them. Bernard Herrmann was another. Alex North is in that league. And Spartacus is just, it's a grand, epic sort of thing. And the music's wonderful. Korngold. King's Row, starring Ronald Reagan. Yeah, King's Row. I don't know. That was the first Korngold score I got. And I think I kind of fixated on it. Robin Hood is more famous. The swashbucklers, Captain Blood and that stuff are also more famous. King's Row nobody cares about. But the score is beautiful. And it has, as with Jaws and some other ones, lots of extended musical tracks that I think really make it worth listening to away from the film. In fact, when Korngold wrote the theme, which is a big heroic thing, he thought it was about, Robin Hood, about heraldry and medieval stuff and knights and kings and queens, and it's about this rural American town called King's Row. But I mean, the people in it are just sort of country bumpkin-ish type things. So the music is maybe a little bit bigger or grander than the film turned out to be, but it's still very, very beautiful music. Okay, Vaughan Williams, his Sinfonia Antarctica. That's, of course, based on his film score from Scott of the Antarctic, which has been recorded as well, but I like the symphony version. There's nothing wrong with choosing works that were taken from film scores and then later reworked into something more apt for concert performance. This is just one of the most atmospheric sounding things you've ever heard in your life. I mean, all the music about glaciers and glitter, the alien landscape in it. Oh my God, it's so beautifully done. You've got penguins bopping around and whales cavorting and the icy wind symbolized by the wordless female chorus and the ending and the wind machine whooshing around in the background. And it's great. Totally great. And Max Steiner. Well, this is a recent one. It's a recent one that I actually only in the past year or so have I gotten to know. But wow, what a score. She. Just plain she, S-H-E, she who must be obeyed. I knew that phrase from Rumpled of the Bailey, but apparently that's where it came from. It came from she. And wow, what a fabulous score, because it was perfect for Max Steiner. It's about these people who go to, they're looking for their dead, dad and lost civilization, and they find the lost civilization, of course. It's like buried in Siberia somewhere. And, it's run by this sorceress who's like thousands of years old because she bathed herself in the radioactive, flame of life or something like that. And then she goes and does it again, and it doesn't work twice. She incinerates herself. But it's got magic, and it's got all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and Steiner just orchestrates it to the max. It's tremendous fun. Jerome Moross, The Big Country. We talked about this one too. I mean, it's the other iconic Western score. Just a phenomenal piece of writing. You know, everyone knows it. Everyone knows the tune, and no one knows where it comes from. A lot of people don't. Just a glorious, glorious piece of writing. Just first class from beginning to end, with zillions of great tunes, beautifully scored. I just love it to death. Prokofiev, Lieutenant Kijé. How could you not love Lieutenant Kijé? Now, there's the vocal version, which I despise, actually, and the orchestral version, which is just marvelous, because you don't have to listen to some Russian guy singing about how, you know, women are like doorknobs or whatever, that, you know, they're shiny on one end and spiky on the other or something. I don't know. You know, the words are just stupid. They're just incredibly stupid. But the tunes, oh, wow, the tunes are just amazing. You know, Woody Allen used batch of it in Love and Death, you know, especially the troika. Da 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 dum bum ba da 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 dum. I played that a few times too, and I was the sleigh bellist. It's just a tremendously beautiful piece, full of unforgettable melodies, and the suite is a masterpiece. A minor masterpiece, but a masterpiece nonetheless. And last but not least, Jerry Goldsmith. We have to do Jerry Goldsmith. Also, Star Trek, the motion picture. Well, it's not just that the main tune became the main theme for like the TV series, The Next Generation, and that stuff afterwards, and the other films, but what really made this score so great is that it carried what was, by all accounts, a lousy movie. I mean, I saw it as a horrible movie. It was terrible, stupid. You know, you have the bald lady who's got, you know, her chastity oath because she's like, you know, spewing pheromones all over the Enterprise. And then you've got V'ger, you know, which is based on Voyager, you know, the Voyager thing, and it's swallowing the universe. And oh my God, it's just ridiculous. But it has these passages of extended music. Again, these are mostly scores that I've chosen that have areas of really extensive compositional work. You know, not just little sniglets of things here and there. And in this particular case, you've got that amazing passage where they go and visit the new Enterprise. You know, you're panning, the camera's panning around the ship and all this stuff. There's no talking. And then you've got that huge sequence when they're penetrating the envelope of V'ger, and, you know, going through all the mist and, you know, electronic effects and all that. It's, you know, it's like that scene in 2001 Space Odyssey, you know, where they're landing on Jupiter, you know, just colors and things swirling around. And you need to have really compelling music. And Goldsmith delivered. I mean, he always delivered, but in this particular case, I think he outdid himself. It was just wonderful. And I just think it's, you know, it's one of those final proofs of the fact that a great score can carry a lousy film. They often did. That's why so many B-rated horror flicks had such fabulous film scores as well, because the movie was like cheesy beyond belief, but with the music to back it, everything becomes suddenly gripping. And Goldsmith's music is absolutely gripping. That's what it is. So there is my list, friends. 16 film scores I couldn't live without. Of course, there are dozens more we could put down, and you're going to do that for me. I am very much looking forward to your lists. I know you've got them like all in the wings, ready to go. So have at it and keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.